for joining us for another episode of the Little Radio Show, where we're bringing you small talk about big topics. On this week's show, we have a little bit more about the Miss Universe fiasco, a follow-up with some additional information, a look at the wonderful exhibit at the Houston Museum of Natural Science about Our Lady of Guadalupe, and a discussion about her cultural impact for the Latino community. We also have the beginnings of a really great conversation that you're going to hear over many, many weeks about gender roles and our takes on it and how it impacts our lives, especially as part of the Latino community. Just a reminder, you can catch our show every week on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central Time on hmsnetradio.org. We invite you to check out our show archives at ldquo.com and to leave us a review or a rating on iTunes and Stitcher channels. The links are on our website.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the Little Radio Show. This is one of your co-hosts, Juan Alanis. I'm the co-founder of the blog, juanofwords.com. And, you know, I've been with the Little Radio Show, this is like episode number 28, I think.
Or, yeah, something like that,
something
yeah.
like that. And I'm here with my co-hosts.
So this is Anjelica Cazares, and again, I'm one of the other co-hosts of Juan of Words, and catch us every Thursday here on the Little Radio Show, of course.
Hi, everyone. This is Sandra Fernandez, and I am your number 3 or number 1 or number 2, depending on the week of here. I'm the publisher at HispanicHouston.com, and we are thrilled to be here for another episode. And I know that we've got a lot of great topics today.
Yep, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about was just a follow-up to one of the topics we talked about recently, which was Miss Universe and the whole thing that happened with Steve Harvey and Miss Colombia, Miss Philippines, not Miss Philippines, but Miss Philippines, and, you know, the fact that, you know, they've all kind of been in the media now. They're all kind of like talking to the media now, and one of the things that Miss Colombia told Univision was, you know, that she thought she didn't like the way that it all went down. She thought in those 4 minutes they kind of tore her dreams apart and nobody really cared.
She
it was
did
just
an
kind
interview?
of... Yeah, and
wow.
And then nobody really cared about, like, you know, how the fact that she had been working so hard to achieve Miss Universe for so long that it was just snatched away from her. So from her perspective, she thinks, you know, it would be fair for her to share the crown with Miss Philippines. Miss Philippines, on the other hand, was like, well, I don't think that would work out. You know, us two women sharing the Miss Universe crown. I don't think that really works out.
And she's absolutely right. One of the things
who's right?
Miss Philippines
okay.
is absolutely right because, and I know that I mentioned this when we had the discussion previously, is that the way that they've set this up, the pageant or the whatever they want to call it, is there's one winner. Uh-huh. She is the ideal. She's the one that won. I don't really see them having two people share the crown.
It's a new era. It's 2016. The century 16 years ago started, and sharing things seems to be the new hype.
But, you know, I can see from
I'm sorry, you don't go and you don't dedicate so much of your effort and so much
to share
to win Miss Universe. To share the crown with someone else. I feel for Miss Colombia, and honestly, I'm going to be shocked if she doesn't at least sue, because honest to God, the mental anguish that they caused her, oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, I can see why she would want to share it. Like, I think they should give her like an honorary title of some
Miss
sort.
Congeniality.
Well, you know, and have her have some role in the whole Miss Universe thing. But I agree with Miss Philippines.
She's gonna forever. Along with Miss Philippines, she's gonna forever be in the history books. Like, her name, every time they talk about her, every time they mention her, it's gonna be this.
As second best.
She's gonna be infamous.
Yes, actually, I think she's gonna be more well known than Miss Philippines. I mean, she was this year's, what it seemed like, the pageant sweetheart. She was the one to, you know, she was the underdog. Everyone wanted her to win. She spoke.
But I think in the last 4 minutes, she was the sweetheart because of what happened to her. But I think that, you know, from the same perspective, Miss Colombia.
Well, it did switch a little bit. I mean, everybody's reaction, her reaction was not a reaction everybody was expecting, and I think everybody wanted something different, and so all eyes are on her. They want to see what is her next move, and so a conversation like this or an interview like this, like, does make I can see the perspective that she's coming from, like not so much sharing, but I think she wants not the same hype or the same attention, but she wants somebody to recognize that she put in as much effort as Miss Philippines did.
But they all put in as much effort.
Did.
It's not the issue
but
of
not
the
all
effort.
of them. Not all of them went through that 4-minute anguish.
She's owed something, but don't go
Exactly.
back to say that it's because of the effort.
Well, it's
Every
like the
girl
thing-
that made it to that stage at the last minutes put in the same amount of effort.
So let's rephrase this then. Maybe it's the effort that she didn't punch somebody on that damn stage when they took away her damn cradle.
Like I said, I see her
Maybe
point.
that.
I see her point, but I also see the point of Miss Philippines. Hey, it's not my fault. Why do I have to share the crown?
Yes.
Because, I didn't do anything wrong. I worked just as hard as you did to get to here. So, I was a rightful winner. And so I do see the point. But the other thing that's happened.
You see, I hear that, and then I put different players in that opinion that you just said, and that sounds completely like selfish for a moment. But I do understand that there can only be one
That's like
winner.
if you win the lottery, and somebody says
understand that.
split the lottery. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but no.
It's unfortunate what
Yes,
happened to her.
definitely.
Absolutely unfortunate. But let's be real. She is not owed the crown. She is not owed the crown because Steve Harvey doesn't know how to read that stupid card.
And on that note,
So, anyways, Juan.
no. So the other thing that I think that I'll mention, and in case you missed it, is the fact that recently we were invited to the exhibit at the Houston Museum of Natural Science, and it was for the Empress of the Americas, which is Our Lady of Guadalupe, which, if you don't know, she's a very famous icon in the Mexican culture and probably across Latin America. But around the world. And so we went and we saw the exhibit. We thought it was really excellent. It was smaller than what I had thought, but it was still
Really?
It still had a lot of variations.
You thought it was smaller than what you intentioned?
I haven't been yet.
Okay, so it was for me. It was pretty large.
I thought it was small. I mean, I don't know. I thought it, for some reason I just imagined that it was because she's so popular. I imagined there was so much more.
Do you want the whole museum to be taken over by?
But they opened on the 12th of December officially, which is it's really that day
It's the day
the
of.
feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So it's a very Catholic date, and a very Catholic. She's a very Catholic virgin who, comes from that religion. And so, it was kind of important that they opened on that date. They opened, and they were supposed to run only for a limited time initially. And recently they've announced that they're going to run now through September of 2016 because it's so popular.
It's a beautiful exhibit. It's an absolutely gorgeous exhibit.
I've heard two things. I've heard that it's a very moving exhibit. I've also heard that the ticket price is a little bit dear. Yeah, what is it? $30 per ticket to get in?
Almost like $40 each person or something.
As not a regular museum goer, I don't know if that's a regular.
It was outrageous.
Regular
I was like,
price
are
to
they?
go.
Yeah.
But if you're a family of 4 or 5, to take your family to go, that's a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's $150,
no,
$180.
You're
Even
right.
for 2,
You're
it's
right.
like $70.
Yeah.
I didn't think about the price, but considering the price, exhibit should be larger. It should be bigger.
Now she agrees with you.
Now I agree with you because it was outrageous, but the exhibit was beautiful. I mean,
well, I do have it listed
stages.
in Hispanic Houston because I did figure that it was important enough and relevant enough to the culture and to the community that I would put it up.
But if you're not Catholic and you're of the Hispanic culture, especially here in Southeast Texas, if you're not, you know who the Virgin de Guadalupe is.
But you know what? You don't have to, because I remember I used to live in Mexico, and 12 de Diciembre, December 12th, which is, Guadalupe Day, it doesn't matter whether you were Catholic or not. Most communities have festivals.
Yeah.
Like here in Houston, they have a really big celebration at the Guadalupe Church. Here in Houston,
Yes.
There's a midnight mass, and we like to go every year.
24-hour celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but that's religious in nature.
Yeah.
I'm talking about communities where it's
Yeah.
out. It's a street festival.
Yeah.
It's out, and there,
Yeah.
there are fireworks, and there are
You know,
dancers, and there are performers, and there are street vendors. And
Your birth, like your birth. Oh, your date of birth. Your date of birth.
El día de San Juan.
El día de San Juan. Don't you do like a festival. You don't even have to be Catholic for you to know that festival is going to happen, and what the significance behind it.
And if
it's
you
not
don't
even
know,
done in
that's June
church.
24th.
But for example, the Our Lady of Guadalupe, that's the same day. That's her day. We know, we all know. We don't even have to, again, like Sandra said, we don't have to be religious. Like last time we were at a restaurant and the matachinas came in.
Yes.
And everybody got ponche. And nobody cared. Everybody was just there celebrating and watching.
Because it's a culturally relevant
correct, very much
day.
So.
And we were invited, so we had got tickets to attend. So we didn't buy the tickets to attend the actual thing, but we did go, and it was really nice.
So tell us again where the exhibit is and how people find out more information.
So it's at the Houston Museum of Natural Science, and I'm sure if you go to their website, you can find a lot more information about the exhibit. But it's definitely, I think it's worth the cost, because it was very beautiful, and there are just so many different renditions of this single icon of our culture.
If you're just tuning in, this is the Little Radio Show on hmsnetradio.org. I had a conversation recently with friends, and it's actually a conversation that happens over and over again, and it's about traditional gender roles, especially in the Latino community. And the word machista comes up, and it depends on who you talk to and whatever. So, let's get some caveats out there. I consider myself to be a feminist, first of all.
Yes.
Which doesn't mean that I hate men, and it doesn't mean that I am going to in fact, I am going, I'm in a group with men, and we're going up to a door. Yes, he is going to open the door for me, be it my brother, my brother-in-law, or my date.
Right.
I got no problem with that. I consider feminism to be, I have the same rights and responsibilities as a man.
Okay.
I get to make the same amount of money for the same work done, and I don't get to have my opinion belittled or be a second-class citizen just because I happen to be female. Mm-hmm. Now, grew up, my dad, as we've talked about this, my dad was a very traditional, patriarchal, his word was law kind of person.
Okay. Sounds like a song.
That kind of thing. That was his personality. Had 3 daughters, okay? Raised us to believe that if we were right, no one got to tell us that we were wrong. We were going to have a college education. We were going to go out and earn our way, that we were going to be able to stand our own 2 feet and not need a man to support us. But when it comes to gender roles, the reality is we were taught to clean the house. We were taught to cook, etc. My sister's marriages, my sisters both work, but they do most of the housework. Mm-hmm. We weren't brought up to change our tires or, fix the car or go out and do the lawn. That wasn't how we were brought up. On the other hand, my dad didn't do any of that stuff either.
He didn't do it
No.
either. I think, the only reason I can't change my tire or do anything underneath the hood of a car is because there was no mechanic in my family that was able to do that.
My dad didn't teach me because he didn't do it.
I was taught all kinds of other things. So my mother was married twice, which was my father, and then her second husband. He was not a landscaper. He worked for a company that cut down trees. Okay. So I learned a lot of skills like that. So we're talking machinery such as what are they called now? I can't even remember the name. Damn saw machine that cuts down
chainsaw.
The chainsaw.
We just watched Scream Queens, Angelica. You should know this.
Not used for the same thing.
So I got lessons on how to cut it and how to angle and make sure you don't break their fence, make sure you don't break their house, how to but I was taught to fend for myself, quote unquote, because my mother worked graveyard shift, which means she worked all night and slept all day. Yeah. Which means I had to be able to do what I needed to do without waking my mother, because, she was the breadwinner in the house and she needed to go to work. And, which meant I needed to be able to, cook for myself. I needed to be able to, clean after myself, which I was not very successful at. I would hide pots and pans so I wouldn't have to clean them. And then I would have to, wash clothes and be able to manage my time, make sure I did what I needed to do throughout the day, because my mother, if my mother woke up and she figured that I wasn't doing much of anything, she'd be like mad and it'd be a horror deal. So to prevent that, I'd be like, okay, I need to do what I need to do. Otherwise, my mom's just going to be pissed. So, but my gender role wasn't so obvious up until later on in life that I got. Why are you agreeing, Juan? He's just shaking his head.
I'm listening.
This is a show where
this is when we needed video.
Yes,
Angelica would have zoomed in on Juan's face so you can see.
He's just shaking his head. So I didn't. It was up until that I was married that there were, and it pisses me off sometimes that I feel I am a feminist. I want to be sure that I know that I can play whatever role I want to without getting the flack of anybody else, whether it be my partner, whether it be my mother, whether it be whatever other audience is out there. I want to be able to play whatever role, whenever I want, however I want. And that's the way I consider myself a feminist. Well, and that's across the board. That's everywhere, of course. But I think
Juan, you can come in. We're not gonna.
No, I was just waiting for you guys. But I mean, I think that I grew up in a much more traditional home where my mom, she cooked 3 meals a day. She made fresh tortillas every day. She didn't require us to learn how to cook.
She still does.
Yeah, she doesn't she didn't never required us for us to cook. She would iron our clothes. She would wash our clothes. So, we, as the boys in the family, we were very pampered, and we were very pampered. By the same token, my dad was, he was always working. He was always by the time he got home, he was tired. So, there wasn't he never taught us how to, do anything mechanical on the car. So yeah. I'm not a very good mechanic at all. So I know how to do very basic things on the car. If I know the battery's gone out, I know I can change a tire. So I can do the basics.
Within this conversation, if people don't know, me and Juan are married, so we are a couple, and the conversation is going to be a lot of me and Juan.
But a lot of the stuff that I don't, there's stuff that we do now around the house. Sometimes Angelica's always the one nailing on the walls, or she's always the one putting stuff up. She's she likes to, and sometimes I'm I don't get involved because I'm I already know her. She likes to do things a certain way, and she's no, you're not measuring that right. It's not a straight line.
That's your excuse, and that's your reasoning. Mine's is different. Mine's is that I think I'm better at the hammer or better at the tools than you. I personally believe that.
But the thing is, she had the back. Her. I don't know. I think her father, but I know her stepfather had her as a young girl. Teaching her different things how to do that, how to work with her hands, and so. I think, there's certain things that she does better than I do.
But
she's more coordinated than I am. I'll say that.
Well, let's go back to the gender roles kind of thing, because some of it is very obvious. The very obvious stuff is most women still tend to do most of the housework, whether they work or not.
You're right.
Most of the couples I know is both of them work. And work an equal amount of hours, and she still does about 90% of the housework.
Yeah, that is
which
true.
It
pisses me off.
It does to me. If he gets home 2 hours before she gets home, why is he waiting for her to get home to cook the dinner?
Or to wait for the meal to be cooked to eat.
Why can't he make something for dinner? She's arriving home 2 hours after he did.
But sometimes it's not a matter of sometimes it's a matter of your skill set, because if
you can learn to cook.
But I can't cook as well as Angelica knows how to cook.
Why? Because you cook less.
No,
I am absolutely certain that if you
I've tried cooking before, and her and Edgar come into the room, they give my food a dirty look, and then they walk out.
If you only cook once a year, and you're not going to be as good at it as someone who does it 700 times a year.
To do it, well. You know what? I would defend you, but I'm going to be really honest. He is a very bad cook. But on top of that, but
he can learn. You can learn.
We have an ongoing conversation with gender roles in our households, because he did come from a very, very traditional family, which was the men did nothing in the house. The man sort of just walked in, and even at that, wouldn't take off.
The man didn't do anything. I just think.
No, hold on. Well, walking into the home, walking into the actual house. All men would have to do, All men had and would do was like kick off their shoes, make sure they didn't track in mud.
Yeah.
And that was it. But he did come from a very traditional house. And so he is lacking, on certain things. But there's some things that you can coordinate well enough to do. For example, I'm just putting it out there, like washing dishes. It's not that hard.
But mind you, that's one of our most popular blog posts was the fight over who's going to do the dishes.
Really?
Yeah. And actually,
amazing.
before Juan posted it, he was so afraid he was going to get flagged from his family because he washed dishes. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? They can't hear you to like, and so even that carries over to like when we go to his mother's house.
Let's talk about childcare for a little while, okay?
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so how do you raise your son versus a daughter? And is it equal between men and women?
Well, see, we have had discussions about this, and I do I do differentiate an opinion with Anjelica on this one, because I think that, and we've had the discussion back and forth. I'm like, I think as the male, as a guy, you kind of have to raise the kid with the expectation that he's going to be the provider for the household, because if more if you don't,
if you didn't hear me, that's me sighing.
More if you don't, and then they do, and they are in that situation, and they don't know how to provide, then they're going to be in trouble. That
brings up all kinds in gender roles. That brings up all kinds of situations that might not.
But when my parents never told me like you're gonna be you're gonna be the provider. But
can you imagine that pressure that you're putting on that boy or that girl to be that?
No, but it's not about like doing it so bluntly and being like you're gonna be a provider. No, it's teaching them like things like being a hard worker.
The rose doesn't grow the next day. You water it eventually throughout years.
Teaching them lessons like how to be a hard worker, have a work ethic.
Oh my God!
How to be able to accept failure and move forward.
But that should be both. That should be both.
What do you mean by every marriage is different? Okay,
correct.
I know families where she stays home with the kids and he goes to work and he makes the money and that works for them. I know families where both of them go to work and they have childcare for their children. I know families where they've opted not to have children. It's a couple. They both work. I know families where when they had the second child, childcare ended up being so expensive, one of them had to quit their job. She made more money and he's the one who stayed home to be the full-time parent. And I actually know several families where that's the case, where the husband is the one who ended up staying home with the kids because she, in fact, made so significantly more money or enough money that it made more sense for her to keep her job than for him to keep his.
I know couples who
being the provider is different from family to family just because the family unit looks different. Now,
and I see what you're saying, but I think it's. I'm sorry.
I just want to finish this.
Okay.
In Latino communities, what you're talking about is being the provider. Is there does tend to be this stigma. Men have to go out and they have to work, and they have to be the head of household. And usually, there's two ways. One is if he's not the provider, if he's not the head of his household, there's something wrong with him.
No, but I don't mean it from that perspective because I know that coming from Latino culture, that is kind of the that is
expectation.
The more traditional role of gender role is for the man to provide and for the woman to be at home. But I'm saying and not necessarily that's the way it has to be for the boy in the family.
Okay,
but
because that's what it sounded like you were saying.
What I'm saying is that you have to prepare them for either option because you can tell them, the world is fairy tales and dust and whatever, but when it comes down to it, and he gets married and the woman he marries, is not able to work or doesn't want to work or has children, then he's going to have to provide.
That's correct. No, and that's not, not wrong. But
what I was trying to say earlier,
what
I was trying to say earlier was the simplicity of you. I get what you're saying, Juan, and I get what you're saying, Sandra. But from my perspective, maybe I'm not sure where I come. Like I'm not sure where I'm coming with this or where I come from. But my perspective is, where are you most comfortable? I know couples where he or she can make more, one or the other can make more, but it's where they're comfortable.
Yes.
It's where they feel more comfortable. And I know some men who are more comfortable being at home, taking care of the kids and taking care of things that need to be taken care of. at the house.
And I don't mean to say that, if you're not the provider, that you're less of a man, because I don't think that. I think that you can be, you being the provider doesn't make you the man, or doesn't make you the man.
No, and that's the same thing with what I was saying. It's where they can be, maybe she's not making a lot of money, but she feels the need to go out, get up in the morning, have her coffee, walk out that door, and go and quote unquote make money. But that's where she feels comfortable, and he will be making more money, but that's not where he feels comfortable. It's what they want to do and what is best for themselves, because in return, if they have children, that'll reflect on their, it'll be an easier house to say. And
but I think we're saying the same thing in different ways.
I think we are. And then roles switch sometimes. And then life kind of happens. And then something might happen to boy, and he needs to work because something happened to her. And I think it's and that's where I try to teach Edgar, is you need to be able to not mold yourself. You need to own your own identity, but you need to be able to accept circumstances.
Well, the thing is, when you go into a marriage,
and you're right. Maybe we're saying the same thing.
When you go into a marriage, with somebody else. So every marriage is different, and every situation is going to be different. So you, as a couple, have to make a decision about what works for you. Whether it's that the guy stays home, the guy works, the girl stays home, the girl works, whatever. But whatever the balance is that works for you, that's what you kind of have to figure out. But I think preparing the boy to be able to do either or is important.
Well, and my dad did the same for
girls.
Me. Yeah. So, that's what my dad did for me, is like, okay, I want you to be able to take care of yourself. I was brought up to be self-reliant. My mom taught me a lot about standing up for myself, but she did, because my grandma was very traditional. No one was allowed in the kitchen. My mom got married. She didn't know how to cook. Mm-hmm. She'd never cooked anything in her life. My dad had to teach my mother how to cook because he'd been living on his own for a while. She didn't know how to boil an egg. I have stories from her about, she had to have my mother-in-law, her mother-in-law, my grandma, or her mom, my grandma, teach her how to make tortillas and other stuff. And, her first year was just abysmal because she didn't know how to do any kind of cooking. I mean, she wanted to teach her daughters to cook because she didn't want us to grow up and be in that kind of situation.
Well, when I was growing up, I would see that my mom would work hard, and so I would help her sometimes to clean up the kitchen, or I'd wash the dishes. And when my grandma from Mexico was here, and she would see me doing that, she'd be like, she was like really shocked, yes. Like, "Oh my God, Mija, you're really letting him wash the dishes? Look, what is he doing? Like, that's not okay. Like, what? Like, get in there and stop him."
Everyone has an opinion, so I'm going to recommend that, because we're going to have to continue this conversation during another episode because there's so much to talk about. But I'm going to recommend that the next time we talk about this, let's invite Letty to,
my God,
our friend Letty to come, because she'll have a different perspective, because we really haven't really talked about the sexuality and the whole thing with men leering at women and women being still being encouraged to be pretty over smart, and there's all sorts of stuff with it.
Yeah, there is.
But obviously, to the audience, I'm sorry, you're probably going to hear about this topic at least a few more times before we've exhausted it. However, we'd love to hear back from y'all as to what you think about some of the stuff we've talked about today.
And taking a step back and going back to the row of gender roles, and I do want to invite you to read. There's a new blogger that I've been reading, and his name is the Daddy Style Diaries, and he wrote an interesting post, which unrelated to this topic, but it kind of hits the same string. And he's talking about breaking the babysitting norm as a father, and how his whole take on how people when he's been sitting outside of the store with his child, people have come up to him and been like, "Hey, how's babysitting going?" Or other guys are telling him like, "How are you? So you're on babysitting duty." And his reaction is like, "Well, I'm not on babysitting duty. This is my child. I'm just being a dad."
You know what? Let's get him on the show.
Yeah, I think we should bring him on. But I think this is an interesting, it's just another interesting conversation that has to do with the same, gender roles and how they're changing. And especially in this younger generation, it's means something mean completely different to what it means to us.
Yeah, people who are, 5-7 years younger than us can have a different aspect. But so here we are. We're talking about gender roles. And I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up because this is a conversation that we can have going on and on and on and on, having cocktails. Maybe that's what you should do next time. Have a few cocktails and just keep having that conversation. So please join in on the conversation. Let us know what you believe about gender roles. Let us know what you think. And do you have the same perspectives we do, or are yours different?
Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Little Radio Show. We invite you to check out our iTunes channel and our Stitcher channel and to leave us a rating or a review. You can find both links at thelittleradioshow.com